Hey, Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Tara, and as always, I'm here with my girlfriend, Jessica.
Hello.
Hello. As you guys can tell and probably have guessed, we're kind of in our recap era right now this year so far. We are going to dive into another docuseries, but this one's really different. We don't typically recap paranormal
No.
documentary or series, but I'm going to be real. I'm sure you guys do too, but I personally needed a break from true crime documentaries. There's so much happening in the world. This is also very dark, but it's different, so I thought it would be fun and I'm enjoying what I've watched so far. What have you thought about it so far?
I have enjoyed it. I wanted to give my live reaction, so I didn't watch the first one. I've only watched the first or the second and the third so that I could be
Okay.
surprised with you. I really like this show.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
But before we get started, if you are new here, thank you for checking out the show. Returning Spooksters, welcome back. If you guys want to hang out with us on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all the places. Our handle is at Three Spooked Girls, or we have our amazing Facebook group, which is Three Spooked Girls Official. And then also we have our Discord. Got a link tree. Everything's there. Whether you're listening or watching this right now, everything's in the show notes or in the description. And if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls. For as little as $1, you get one bonus episode a month. 5 and up, they get ad-free episodes the day before. And soon, our Gypsy Rose recap. So I have to keep mentioning it because I'm just so excited and I'm so ready for that mess to come back.
Me too.
I think it's going to be fantastic. This goes up in March, so that may be starting this month. I don't know. I can't
I think it
remember
starts
what
like
day
the
it comes out.
8th or something, or the
Okay,
10th. It's something
soon.
early because I remember when we looked it up, we were like, it's at the end of the month, and it was surprisingly at the beginning of the month.
Yeah. Okay. Well, soon, guys, soon. So if you want to support the show or you want to listen to that, check that out. And we also have our book club, which is a Spookster Literary Society. We are in the book clubs app, and you can also find us on all the socials with that same name. In March, we will have 2 reads. We're recording early, so I don't know what we're reading yet. So surprise, but you guys will know by the time this comes out. But we're just going to go ahead and get into it. So as you guys can see by the title, we are going to be recapping Jack Osbourne's Haunted Homecoming, which I lived under a rock, I guess, because this was news to me that he is in the paranormal field. I love it and I'm obsessed, but I genuinely had zero idea that he did this, that he was a professional paranormal investigator and has like there's a ton of shows.
Me too.
Like
I was
he
like,
has so many.
I know. Once you watch it, like the suggestions pop up, and I was like, "Sir, do you sleep? Like you have so many shows."
For real, he is hustling. But this one did release in October of 2022 on the Travel Channel. There are 3 episodes. So for the next 3 weeks, we get to go on this journey with Jack. And for the show as a whole, the synopsis on IMDb read in this special miniseries for Halloween, Jack Osbourne returns to the UK to visit his childhood home and a handful of locations in Buckinghamshire to discover the truth behind experiences he had there as a young boy. And I love that connection. It's really interesting. It's the main focus of our first episode, but I love getting to learn that about him because I had no idea. I mean, it makes total sense that this house was haunted, of
Oh, for
course.
sure.
But I don't know. Maybe just because of like my age a little bit, I was on that like weird cusp because the Osbournes who don't, or if you guys aren't familiar or you don't really recognize his name, his dad's Ozzy Osbourne, and they had this show in the early 2000s, and I like vaguely remember it, but like it was out from 2002 to 2005, so I think that was like just at that point where it was like not quite the reality TV I was watching. I think I was watching like probably The Challenge and Road Rules at that point.
Right.
But yeah, so at this point in his career, Jack had already completed around 100 investigations, which I was like, what? That's so
Dang.
fucking many, right?
Right.
And like I mentioned, we're going to his childhood home. This is the Welders house. It is about 30 miles northwest of London in Buckinghamshire. And this is where he grew up, where he spent time as a kid. He does mention, like, I have lived in the US way more than I ended up living here in my life, but for my whole family, this place is home, which makes sense.
Do they
And
still own that house?
I don't know if they do today. As of 2022, they did.
Oh,
So,
okay, because I
yeah.
was like, he got real comfortable in it, and I was like, if he's just visiting someone else's
No,
house,
no, no,
that's
no. They
great.
still, yeah, no, they still owned it at that point. I would assume they probably still do. They have like all the rooms set up. We'll get into a little more, but like in his childhood room, like it's still set up how it was before and things like that, you know? So, like, yeah, still their house. There's a ton of Aussie stuff in there and all kinds of cool stuff. Now, he said that the paranormal happenings that he experienced in this house led him to essentially two epiphanies in his life. One, he genuinely thinks that this house cursed his family because when they, like I said, their show ran from '02 to '05. There was a lot of scary things that happened one right after another to them. One was there was a fire at their house. Two was that Ozzy was in a motorcycle accident. And then he also included that his mom got cancer. And he was just like, it just kept going boom, 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 boom. And he's learning things about this property, being like, maybe some of that attributed to all of the misfortune that happened during that time with the family. And he also said that all of these experiences was a huge influence on the trajectory of his life, and that he's not back for closure. He's back because he wants actual answers. At first, when I heard that, I was kind of like, that's a really interesting way to describe the influence. But then when I watched it the second time, I was like, you know what? That actually makes sense because I think he's probably referring to his now career in the paranormal. And when he was getting ready to put this series together, he was introduced to essentially, I would say, his co-host of the show, Dr. Kate Sherrill. And Kate is so cool. I'm like, I want to be you when I grow up. So Kate has a PhD in spiritualism in Victorian Gothic. And I'm like, no one ever told me. Maybe I would finish school if I had known this was, you could do cool things.
Right?
I didn't even know this was a thing, but I love it. So she was brought on as the official researcher for this project. So they start off with Kate and Jack meeting at Welders, and he takes her on a tour of the house, and he starts to tell us about all of these experiences he had as a child. So we start in this like living room type of area. It's an old house. So like would have been a sitting room, but it's what's attached to his dad's study. And he said that in this like living room, he said this is the vibiest, aka the creepiest part of the house for him, and he doesn't come in here very often, and if he does not go in there alone, and it's just him. It doesn't affect anybody else as much as it does him and his family. In the study, we go in there, and that's basically like Ozzy's office type of thing. There's a lot of really cool antiques in there. They have religious artwork, they have religious artifacts, and of course, and I love that Kate pointed it out because Jack's like, oh yeah, that's there. For those that are old enough to remember Ozzy biting the head off of the bat during the
Yeah.
show, they taxidermied it and put it in like a shadow box
I love
frame
that
situation.
so much.
Right? It was actually, like, really cool looking. Like, I know that's so gross to say, but it was really cool looking. And it's funny because while they're Kate's like, "Oh my god, some of these things you guys have are so, so old." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Honestly, I started thinking about it." And he's like, "This is why there's so many people with accounts who work in museums or are around museums a lot because there's all of this history, there's all of these artifacts." So he's like, I don't know if anything we have contributes to what's going on, but you never know. So after they leave the study, they move to the second floor, and Jack talks about, well, I think this is technically the third floor. Anyway, they go up this set of stairs that we'll talk about a lot during this. And he's like, I can remember very vividly, being like yay tall and walking through here and things like that. And one of the biggest ones that was a regular thing for him was when he was walking up the stairs, one, he would always have this urge to like sprint up it. Like he did not feel like he was by himself. When you come up the stairs, it's like stairs, you're at the top, and then it kind of has a little bit of a hallway. And then and then it comes to like a T, and then there's like the rest of the hallway. At the top of that like corner area, he would always see a dark figure of a woman with like long dark hair out of the corner of his eye. And when
Oh.
he would go to look, she would vanish. So he's like, I don't know who she is, but she was always there. And so Kate's like, okay. And then they move up to the bedrooms, and his childhood bedroom, which I mentioned is like, still got like the same original paint. They did a bunch of beautiful artwork within it. It's like a cute little boy's room. Like it was so cute. And it's like kind of, I don't know, very different than the rest of the house, or like what you would expect from the Osbourne family, you know, kind of like more
Right.
fairy tale type theme and
Aw.
things like that with some of these rooms. The bedroom room decor is really, really surprising. There's two other rooms that really surprised me too. We'll get in those in a second. But like, it's just a cute boys' room, and there's like, forest paintings and like, things like that. And like, it's just so cute. And then Kate's like, man, I want my room painted like this now. Like, it was just so funny, but it was so cute. And this was the only room in this whole estate that he ever felt safe in. He's like, I never experienced any activity here, like no weirdness, no bad vibes, no nothing. So this was like the one spot that he
Aw, I'm
was
so glad
like,
it's his room.
right, that he would be safe in. But then we move into this other hallway, and most of the house is hardwood floor, but there's this one area going into, I don't know if it was like the kitchen or what. I can't remember really, if I'm being honest, but it has marble flooring. So the way people's feet, like when they walk, their footsteps, you sound very different on
Oh,
those two
yeah,
types of materials, right?
for
So
sure.
he's like,
Yeah.
it's very distinctive, all of that. And then this being an old house, there's along the little hallway, there's these like cupboard closet things all along the wall. And you just like, you open up like the wood door, like the flat wood door, and then it's like the shelves or whatever. But anyway, he is talking about these and kind of showing, because he's like, yeah, when we were little kids, doing little kid things, they'd run up and down the hall and like shut them and like open them and, like mess around and things like that. And he's like, but the thing is like, again, the steps, right? And he says one day that him and Kelly, his sister, for those who don't know, when he was around 10, they were home by themselves because they had stayed home from school. They had both been sick, and they were over in their parents' room at the time, which when we see this room, it's like all like pink and white and like kind of
Ah,
lavendery. It's like
so
very pretty.
Sharon
Yes,
definitely
like she chose
decorated
it.
it.
I was like, "Oh, this is
Or
a cute room."
this is a different side of Ozzy we didn't know.
Exactly, exactly. Anyway, they hear somebody walking that sounded like a adult, right? Because of the heavy footsteps, and they could hear those cupboards shutting. And they thought that someone had broken into the house and was just like
Oh.
looking at stuff, whatever. Which it's like, you have famous parents, so that's a valid fear, you know what I mean? So he says that they ended up, and I was laughing a little bit because I was like, "Ooh, this is so dated." So he's like, "So we called my mom on her car phone."
Oh my god, I love that.
I know. And he said, "We were over by one of the windows. We opened it up and we told our mom someone was in the house and we were about to jump out the window to try to escape."
That's
And
so scary. Being
they
homesick too and being like, "I'm gonna jump from the window."
Yes, like they were terrified and, rightfully so. And it was so funny because this was also the part, and I think he knew people were going to pick up on this room. So, correction. So, I wrote down what it looked like. It was more like a dusty pink, but like same vibe. Dusty rose,
Yeah.
like same vibe. But yeah, he's like, I knew from such an early age, when my dad was performing, he has this persona, right? Like he's very over the top. If you guys don't know who he is, just Google him and you will understand in 2 seconds. But he's like, when he was home though, he was just John. He was a regular guy. Like he would sit down, watch trash TV, whatever. Like he was not that like persona all the time,
Right. I mean, it would be
which
really the energy level would be
oh my god.
insane.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have children if he was like that 24/7.
Right.
Just saying. Uh, but he was just like the fear that he felt, he still remembers so clear. And he's just like, I don't know why, but just it was always me that was the most effective. But Kelly was scared too, and things like that. So at this point, Jack checks in with Kate as he's telling her all this, and they're just like doing a little sit down somewhere in like the garden. And he's like, "How are you feeling about the house? Like, what are your thoughts? What kind of vibes are you getting?" And she said, as far as like the energy and stuff, she's like, "It just feels really busy." And she's like, "I just don't feel like I'm actually alone when I go into any of these rooms, like at all." And I'm just like, "Oh God."
Right.
Just you wait, just you wait. So the discussion that they're having at this point is like, we need to find out if this is residual energies or if this is an intelligent entity, meaning, it's fully aware. And where you see, for those, if we haven't done paranormal stuff in a while, so if you need a refresher, if you see on the paranormal hunting shows like where they're getting answers or responses, those are going to be the intelligent entities. The ones where it's like basically, I think we talked about this in Stanley a long time ago. Residual is literally that. It's like an imprint of a memory. So it can't interact with you. It's not going to harm you,
It's more
nothing's
like
going
a
to happen.
snapshot in time.
Right. So those are harmless, but they're like, we got to see what's going on. And he's like, well, before we keep going, I have more stories for you. So he's like, you need to meet my best friend. His name is Jamie. And this is like someone he's grown up with. Jamie is like a normal person. He watches the property, he watches this house for them from time to time. And he's a huge skeptic of the paranormal, actually. He does talk about his own experience here at Welders. At the time of filming, this was the most recent thing to happen at this house.
I love a
So,
good skeptic who's had an interaction and they're like, "Nope, wasn't a thing." And you're like, "But the ghost pushed you downstairs."
well, he's a skeptic in general. He acknowledges this happened. So, Jamie, his wife, and at the time their daughter Ivy was a year old, were staying at the house. They were house sitting for a few weeks. And it's so funny because he's basically Jack's letting us know that Jamie's a no bullshit kind of guy. He's like, okay, so here's what you need to know about Jamie. He's very English. He's a salt of the earth type of person. Like, no bullshit. And he's like, yeah, Jamie actually makes fun of me for making these paranormal investigation shows. So, it's a big deal if he's
Oh,
coming on it.
I love that.
Yeah. I was just like, oh my God, I love this so much. So, Jamie, he's telling Kate that, yes, I am a skeptic, but if I have concrete proof to explain what's happening or whatever, I'll accept that. And I'm like, okay, we love an open-minded skeptic. That's good to have a healthy amount of skepticism to it. So back in 2018, like I said, him, his wife, and his daughter were staying there for a few weeks. And there's this other room that they call the fairy tale room because it's also like very cutesy and stuff like Jack's room was. So they set Ivy up in there when they were staying like to sleep in and whatever. They were staying in the room right next door. And, being a baby, she woke up in the middle of the night and it was like 1 a.m. or something. So they went into the room to go settle her back down so she could go back to sleep. And while they're in there, they both heard something weird. And I love the approach him and his wife had because they like heard it at the same time and like looked at each other, and he said we decided to both say what we thought we heard at the same time on the count of 3, so there's no influence over what we thought we heard.
Mhm.
I was like, that's valid. So
Smart.
they say, 1, 2, 3, and they both say they heard a woman singing to piano music. And
Oh.
and they weren't sure exactly where it was coming from, but it sounded like it was somewhere on that same floor. So like either in Jack's room or somewhere really close by. They were just like, that's really all they knew. That it was weird. They have no explanation for it. There was nothing on in the house.
At least it's pleasant. Like a woman singing
Right?
at a
It's not
piano is
scary.
pleasant. Like if it was a banshee screaming, not so pleasant.
I'd be like, I'm sorry, I love you, but I'm not house sitting your
Peace.
house.
Your house is too haunted for me.
Right. So from here, Kate gets into researching the property and diving into all the archives. Again, very jealous. So she learns that, as expected, there's a lot of history here. So Welders has been around for about 250 years, a little more now at this point. And the property was previously known as Welders Farm because it was just land. And they ended up building a house, the first house, in 1899. And this was built by Charles Ritchie, who was a baron and a chancellor of Exchequer, something like that. Sorry. Basically, a rich person. Later, it was bought by St. Luke's Hospital and then added on to whatever because it was turned into St. Luke's Lunatic Asylum.
This so tracks for Ozzy Osbourne.
Around 1910, 1911-ish, there was 13 patients at the facility, and this is when she was able to find a lot of their case files. The one she felt was important to show Jack was a file of a woman named Eve. She had been admitted due to mania at the age of 27. When she was there, she had a tendency to break windows and mirrors and tried to use the shards to harm herself. And there was also an instance of her throwing knives at another patient.
Oh,
Mhm.
escalation.
And, they go into that these asylums treated their patients so atrociously. The manner of, I say this with air quotes, care that they gave, a lot of the time was really dangerous and, either escalated the issue, added more symptoms, or gave someone symptoms that was obviously perfectly healthy, because mania a lot of time was the woman wouldn't shut up, but, so lots of bad things. And this place was no exception to that. And then the next thing she found was a newspaper clipping about Eve. So on January 4th, 1911, she was hit by a train at Gerard's Cross, which is the tracks like right behind Welders' house.
Okay.
So they're like, maybe it's her, maybe is she this woman that I have seen for years? Like, obviously they don't know yet, but they're like, could be. Maybe something different. We don't know. So Jack and Kate, they go to the train tracks where her death occurred to see if they could make any kind of contact at all. And they brought a spirit box with them. Now, Jack stays put in the car and Kate goes first. So she goes by herself, well, with the crew, but she goes out by herself first to see if she can make any contact with her. And she starts asking about Eve's time at the Welder house. There's a woman's voice that picks up and she's like, just asking general questions. And she's like, how was the people there? Like, how did they treat you? Like, things like that. And a woman's voice says, pretty nice. And so she's like, oh shit, okay,
Oh,
we're getting a response,
okay.
right? So Kate is like, hey, Jack, come on. And so he comes out and he starts trying to make contact. And in real time, they don't hear this. They hear it when they're in post production. So after he starts asking questions and tries to talk to the entity, you hear this voice that's not exactly the same as that woman voice. It's a bit deeper. It says, get away.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, it's a little like scarier voice, but yeah. And obviously hearing it, like they can't. That's what I like. They admit they're like, we can't say that was them being threatening or maybe it was a warning. Like we really don't know. They really, I will say, and I'm sure this bleeds into all of his work, like they make a conscious effort to look at all the different facets of what's happening. You know what I mean? And I
That's
like
very
that.
true.
I
Yeah.
like that a lot.
And the ghost could also be warning the other ghosts, like, don't, like, it's like, don't go near them. We don't
True.
know them. Don't touch them.
True. Oh my god. They're like, "Don't fucking talk, bitch." Like he was telling the first one. Like it's two ghosts.
Right? They're like, don't talk to them. They're going to want to talk to us more. Leave us alone.
Valid. I didn't even think about that. So when they get back to the house, they are joined with a psychic medium. His name is Ryan Griffiths. And they take him around the house. They don't tell him anything that they haven't talked to him about this history, nothing. He told them, like, I want to go into this blind so I can do as much of a unbiased reading for you as possible, which I'm like, again, love that. Ryan has been in the paranormal field for over 20 years. His career started really interesting. So he said that he started into this whole area of work as a spiritual medium guru in spiritualist churches. And that kind of paved the way for him to become an investigator himself. And I was like,
I
that's
like
interesting.
that. It's a
Yeah.
good pathway.
Right? And like literally they barely start and it's like he's picking up on stuff as soon as he's like, okay, we're going now. You know what I mean? Like he's got it. He even said that he's like, I picked up vibes as soon as I stepped in the house. So the first energy that he talks about is a male energy. He says that it's been here a long time and is more connected to the property rather than the house itself, which
Oh,
considering, you know, it's technically had two houses, like, makes
that makes
sense.
sense. Yeah.
He does say that he doesn't get a very nice feeling about this guy. And then from here, they move to that living room, sitting room area that Jack is really creeped out about. And Ryan stops and says he feels a really big shadow type of energy in this room and that it's connected to Jack. And when he looks at him, is when he's like, like it's channeling, like he can just see it
Mhm.
with him. And he says, I feel like this gentleman is personal to you. He's like, I can see him that like he's walking heavy, that he's stomping, and that he's marching towards Jack, basically, anytime Jack's around.
Why do
He's,
you like Jack?
I don't know. And at this point, they're like, holy shit. Like, in the post-production interview thing, he's like, could this be that same entity that like me and Kelly heard? I don't know at this point. I'm just like, what the hell? Because literally there's no way for this guy to know this story. And so Ryan does confirm that he believes that this is an intelligent entity just from everything he's channeling from it. And he's like, for some reason, he's here for you specifically, Jack. I don't know why, but that's like the message that's coming through. And then they lead him into the dining room, which is right off the living room. And he says that when he's in there, he's like, I get this like military vibe. He's like, I feel like powerful, like I want to make decisions, like all of these things. And they're like, that's so weird. Like they hadn't really talked about it or anything.
Mhm.
And so they go up the stairs, the creepy stairs, and Ryan says that he feels the same energy as in the dining room as they're making their way up. And he says that he has this urge to sprint up the stairs like somebody is behind him. We have heard that before. Where did we hear that? We heard that from Jack. And
Right?
I was like, holy fucking shit. This is the same fucking thing.
Just following him.
Literally. And then when they're up there, he says, I'm starting to pick up a female energy as well, like up here specifically. And that's again where he saw the woman standing. And he says that the woman is about his height. I don't know how tall this guy is, but he's like, she's about my height and reminds him of an old school, like mistress type of lady, like a head mistress.
Oh, I thought we were going in a different direction, mistress.
No, no, no. No, no, no. So another thing, like so many parallels, it's just really like kind of taken him and Kate by surprise. And then they end up into the room that baby Ivy was in with Jamie and his wife having, their encounter. And he says, I also feel a female energy here that's connected to this room specifically. And he picks up this energy of children learning there. Nothing bad. No bad, not from the asylum
Oh,
days, nothing bad.
that's
So
good.
I'm like, "Oh my god, this was like a kid's playroom or something." And then he said that he wouldn't be surprised if there was like accounts of little sounds, of movements, that the type of energies that's left in here are residual and none of it is aggressive or harmful, that it's more, again, positive. Which, if you go back to thinking about them hearing the woman singing on the piano, that makes
Mhm.
me like hypothesize basically if that was like a playroom or the kids' room or like something like that, it wouldn't be too weird. Like a mom may have played music on the piano to entertain her kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was like, oh, okay.
And especially, like, in olden times, music was something that was taught to
Right.
children as, like, one of their courses.
Right, exactly, yeah. So then they hop over to the room that him and Kelly, the parents' room, when they experienced hearing the footsteps and the slamming of the cupboards and everything. And it's interesting because also while Jack is staying here at his house, I'm assuming it's like used as like a guest room now. He's staying in that room now rather than like, his child room with his probably still child bed in there.
He's like, "I can't. My feet hang off."
But what's so weird about this is Ryan's like, he's not even through the door. He doesn't want to go in there. He's like, honestly, I'm already picking up like really bad energy, really bad vibes. And Jack and Kate, they're like walking in, so they're not looking at him at that point. And then like they turn and they're like, well, you want to come in? We can, let's get in here. Like, trying to be like, oh, let me just like politely be like, come on.
Right.
And he was like, I rather not, but I will. And so then he very
Poor
hesitantly comes
Ryan.
into this room. I'm not kidding. I'm like, "Oh, if the medium's scared, have we not watched Insidious? Leave."
Just get out. He's saying
Like,
no.
oh my god. So he comes in there and he's like, that male entity I was telling you about earlier, Jack, I'm picking him up again in here. And he's just like, I do not like the energy in this room at all. I do not. And I'm just like, Jack, you're rich. Just go get a B&B. Get out. Like,
Or
I'm so
sleep in a
stressed
different
at this
room.
point.
Sleep in a different room.
Something. Go sleep in the safe room. Go sleep in your room.
Like, air
And
mattress that shit.
Yeah, right? Well, and, like, honestly, you okay, Jack, you coulda slept in the room Ivy slept in because there was, like, a queen bed in there, I saw
Right, that's what I was thinking. I was like, "There's another
it.
room in this house where it's safe." Good
Right.
vibes, all good vibes. Of course,
Um,
Jack didn't know it was bad vibes until, like, the meeting was
Now
like, "I don't wanna be in
he
here."
still sleeps in there after!
Oh,
Spoilers, he still fucking
Jack.
sleeps in there, I'm like, "Oh my god."
He's like, "I kinda like
Um
it."
And so Ryan starts channeling this entity, right? And he says that it makes him feel really uncomfortable. He's being told that he is not welcome in this room in particular whatsoever. And then, like earlier, when he was like channeling the marching and stuff like that, he says he gets this overwhelming feeling of wanting to push Jack around physically, that the energy is rushing Jack basically, or trying to rush Jack type of thing. And he said that it also like there's this urge to make Jack feel intimidated.
Jack, why are we sleeping in a room with a ghostie who really wants to cause you harm?
I have no idea. I have no idea. And the male entity wanted to communicate with Jack. And I'm like, well, we get that at that point, but you're not going to be nice. So go away.
No, you don't use nice words.
And he picks up that the entity can affect Jack's mood, his energy, and how he behaves very easily.
Oh,
And then he
interesting.
tells Yeah, and then he tells Jack, "You need to be very, very careful when you interact with this entity."
I don't like that.
No, and at the end of the house reading, Jack asks Ryan if he has any advice going into his and Kate's investigation that they have planned for after Ryan leaves. He tells them that something needs to be done about the male entity, and then I'm like, "Motherfucker, you're going back on what you said." He tells Jack, "Use yourself as bait."
I mean, if it doesn't like you, you are the best bait.
True. But then he turns to Kate and he says, the minute you see him not acting like himself, you need to get him out of that room or out of that area. If it's like, the stairs or whatever, too. Because he
Oh.
says that with all this, even though, yes, he is saying use yourself as bait, he says, I'm really concerned about your mental state and how this has the potential to affect you. So, obviously Kate and Jack are taking this very seriously. So with all of that, they do go into the investigation. They have a little section where they're like setting up all their stuff. Once the investigation starts, Kate's actually the first one to kind of dive into reaching out for contact. And we learn that she practices scrying. If you guys aren't super familiar, we've talked about this previously, but it's a form of divination basically where you look into a mirror and you stare into it to see if there's any kind of contact from the other side or if there's any kind
Mhm.
of peek of like what's happening around you, right?
It truly
And
terrifies me.
yeah, same. So Kate, she goes up to the top of the stairs where Our Lady hangs out. And wouldn't you know, there's this giant antique mirror right across the way. Cause I'm like, of course there is. And that's what she's gonna use. So she's like leaning on the railing, which I'm also like, this also adds in my like this would also make it more creepy too, because you're like, she's just like cash leaning on the like banister thing. I'm like, I would not be leaning on that.
You could get knocked the fuck over.
Yeah. Jack's back in their like little control room that they have set up with like the cameras and because they have cameras all throughout the house, of course. They're sitting there for a while she's staring into the mirror and Jack goes, "What was that?" and kind of looks like at this like area because like say imagine Kate looking into the mirror and then like kind of to her upper left above her
Mhm.
head, there's this like weird it kinda looks like a face or something, like and Jack's like,
Ah,
"I don't know if I" Yeah, I know, but Jack's like, "I don't know if I'm being paranoid, it's also in, like, night vision and, all that." So he's like, "Maybe I'm just getting too excited. It's
could
okay."
be a shadow. It could just be
E
a shadow.
Right, and there's, like, a chandelier, so, like, there's explanation, so he's just like, "Okay,
Oh, for
whatever."
sure.
So
Like that they do this, that they do try to look for something that isn't paranormal before they're like, "It's a ghost."
Right. He literally says, "Maybe I'm being paranoid," and, like, shakes it off. And then, something startles Kate, and she literally yells, "Oh, fuck," or something like that you're just like, "Oh, fuck what? What? What's happening?" 'Cause, nothing's like there's no noise, nothing's happening.
And it's like
So
a
Jack
dramatic TV show, so they're like, "Oh, fuck," and then, like, all the camera angles, and then it's just, like, they cut to what would have been a commercial, and you're like, "What happened?"
Right. So, immediately, Jack and the crew, they go up to see, like, what the fuck. because they didn't see or hear anything through the cameras, right? And plus, it's like a second delayed too, so like they gotta make sure she's okay. She said that she saw a man stepping out from behind her in the in the mirror, and then she also heard footsteps behind her. Like,
Nope. Just nope,
y-
nope, nope, nope.
yep,
A big old
yep.
rope of nope.
And also, I do want to point out she's very experienced with scrying. So this isn't like a, oh my God, first time I'm freaking myself out type of situation. She's a professional, just
Mhm.
say. Like, obviously, PhD in it, but like, after this, they decide they're going to try another form of contact. And I believe they're back in the dining room at this point. So they're all set up and they have a spirit board, AKA a Ouija board they're going to use.
I love a good
And
Ouija board session.
I do
She
too.
says, as long as it's on her TV and not in her person.
You have a spirit box. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, but my batteries are not in my spirit box. Because I'm paranoid about it. I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking leave the batteries. What if it turns it on? I don't want to play this game.
You could turn it on without it. So I guess you're safe.
And it's also like in my cupboard. Like, so I
That's good.
probably wouldn't hear it because I'm hard of hearing anyway. So if
There's like
if
a
there's a
ghost
ghost,
this like last year or something.
ghost, if you live in my apartment and you're like, Jessica, I want your attention, not the way to do it. Use the lamp near my bed because those are touch lamps. You could just turn that on. Very simple. But please don't. I would cry. Well, first I'd be like, where are the cats? Because, oh, by the way, my cats have figured out how to turn on the touch lamps with their nose. Just magically turns on and you're like, intruder. Also, why would the intruder turn on the light?
Maybe they have bad vision.
they're like, you are hard of hearing. I am hard of eyesight. Let me make this easier. Please don't. Ghost, please don't turn on the lights in my house. Also, if there's a
Yeah.
ghost, go to the neighbors. Just go to them, not me. I have
Oh my
enough
God.
hard time sleeping as it is.
So back to our Ouija board session.
Sorry.
It's okay. So they ask some questions. So Jack starts off and says, if anyone or anything is here is willing to talk, we invite communication, and nothing. And so Kate says, anyone there who wishes to speak with us. And I shit you not, there's a candle. There's like a line of candles like along the table and stuff. And only one flickers, only one of them. And they're close enough. If it was like someone
Oh,
blowing, it would have been more than one.
okay.
Yeah. And so
Right.
they're like, oh, fuck. Jack asks, is there anyone in the house with us? And the planchette goes to the letter L. And so they're like, okay. Doesn't go to anything else. So he moves on to the next question, asks, are you male? And it moves to yes. He asks a few questions and he says, is that you who was walking down the hallway all those years ago? Are you the shadowy man Ryan saw earlier? And now we get some candle action again. So he's like, blow out one of these candles if you're here. And there's this like standing candelabra thing behind them. And it looks like someone is trying to blow on them, but doesn't quite have enough of
Oh,
energy. But then he's like,
got
oh,
it.
there, I think, again, trying to explain it away. He's like, there could be a draft in here. Like, quit lying to yourself.
One of those, this is not a ghost that I'm trying to communicate with. It's a draft.
Other questions that they ask is, did you live in this house? And it says no. Did you live in the house that was here before? And the entity also says no.
Oh, so just living on the property.
So Jack like starts getting chills and goosebumps, and it's like he's just like, oh shit. He says, give me your name. Who are you? And it spells out LT. He asks, are you the soldier that Ryan was seeing? And he said, yes. So they're like, okay, maybe this. So they
Oh,
start referring to this entity as the lieutenant. And Kate says, were you brought here? Entity says, no. Jack says, did a person bring you here? It goes to yes. And when it goes to yes, Kate starts getting dizzy during this part out of nowhere.
oh no.
And then Jack asks if they can tell them who brought them there, and it spells out Jack's name. And Jack starts getting like upset. You can tell. I mean, like, what the fuck? I would too. But he's like, I didn't bring you here. You're lying. I never brought you here. This is not true. So they probably go a little longer, whatever. But they ended up closing out their session, and they say that it didn't feel threatening, but it wasn't like a pleasant type of energy feeling during this, you know? Jack says he does start to feel validated for all of these past experiences he's had at the house now. So now they're discussing everything they've found from their night of investigation. And at this point, they have more questions than answers, but it does unlock a memory for him. So when Jack was a kid, right there, like out in the yard, there's this like water fountain. And pretty close to it, he was just like playing one day and like digging around, being a, little boy thing, digging dirt. I mean, I'm a girl and I did that, but whatever. Digging in the dirt, messing around. I should say millennial kid thing.
Yeah. Just a child.
Or-
I think pre-technology children.
Yes, yes. But he found this thing called a Derringer, which is a small handgun that had been used during the time period of all of this documentation of the soldiers and stuff. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's a little tiny gun. Fun fact, this was the same kind of gun that was used to assassinate Lincoln.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and it like obviously it was like damage from the elements and things like that. So
Mhm.
in the show, you'll see one, but it's a replica. And he does say that he's like, oh, this is a replica, so you can see like what it actually looked like. But it's like tiny. And it was buried in the backyard and he found it.
It's
And
giving the vibe from, what is it? Men in Black when he's like the little tiny cricket.
yeah. And so from there, Kate does additional research to see what they can find out about this lieutenant entity. And she does find a real lieutenant tied to this area. So she found out that there was a lieutenant colonel named William Dupre who was born in the late 1800s and lived in that area until he died in 1946. Even more so to be like, this could be him is that this lieutenant purchased the land surrounding Welders' house in 1916, and he lived there till he died. So,
Oh, so he like close by.
yes, that raises the questions that like, is this the same guy? Is this him? Did Jack finding this weapon when he and then digging it up kind of like stir some kind of energy? We don't know. Now Jack, because apparently he will make all the sacrifices for his craft, he goes back to the top of the stairs. And this part just stressed me out too. So, like in the corner, when you come up the stairs, when it's like that mini hallway part, there's this Yoda statue thing there. And I'm just like staring at Yoda for comfort during this. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna look at Yoda because I know what you are. I
I
was
love that.
stressing. I was stressing. And, because he's up there by himself, he's talking about how he's feeling and things like that. And he says he starts to get a cold chill through his body and he starts talking to the entity to try to get a response. And the temp gauges that they have set up are starting to go off like crazy. So, change in the temperature in the room means something's there. Something's there. That's what that means. And then you hear Jack say, "What the fuck was that?" And that was like the first time he like shows being unsettled, right? Because he's very calm
Mhm.
throughout most of this. I will be honest. Even when he's being like, "No, bro, you're lying," like he was very calm. I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." So he like I said, super, super freaked out. And he said he starts hearing sounds from the floorboard that may have been like stepping, but the mics aren't picking it up. So we don't hear that. And the crew and Kate, they're not hearing it at this point. And so Jack says, "Hey, can you do that again?" Then in the scary bedroom, the temp gauges are going off in there. So I'm like, oh God, here we go. He goes over there, he leaves the stereo, he goes in that room, and he's like walking in and he's facing like this vanity thing. And he's like, "I'm going to knock. I want you to knock back." Nothing happens. But he says that he feels like there's someone at the door. Like he feels like there's a presence by the doorway, not in the room with him. Then he goes back up to the stairs. He goes back to I keep wanting to say Baby Yoda. He keeps going to Yoda. And this is when that like those physical attributes start coming out of him being afraid. He's talking about how he's like got all these chills, like all of the hair on his like neck and his arms are standing up. He's got goosebumps. He tries to see if he can get it to knock. He tries again. He's like, "I'm going to knock, you knock back." This was another thing that was like not picked up because Kate and the crew couldn't hear it, but Jack heard it. He knocks and he hears a soft tap right afterwards. I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
shit.
I'm like, okay, good. And he gets this to happen more than once. Like it happens again. Like he gets it to tap a second time. And then this is when Jack's like, "I'm ready to fucking dip. Fuck this." And
I like Jack's like, "This is my line."
yeah, he's like, "Okay, I'm freaked out now." Like he's visibly shaken up and traumatized at this point. And even Kate is like, she's like, "I'm getting really worried. This is exactly what the medium told me to watch for. Like, this is not the same Jack." that was there earlier. Like, he is not himself right now. Like, you can tell because it's like shit's scaring him. He says that he's getting dizzy and it just things are just really fucking weird. So he's like, okay, I'm done. So then he's like, it's time to come back down now. And I'm like, thank God.
He
And
they
that
do a good
too.
job. They do a good
Yeah,
job of, like,
he did stay.
not
He was,
pushing.
yeah, he was up there for a while. That ties back into, is this the entity that's controlling his emotions? Is that entity making him feel scared when there's, not an actual threat or whatever? So it could be. And when he comes back into the control room, he tells Kate, like I mentioned at the beginning, he's done over 100 investigations at that point. He said the last 2 hours at this house during their investigation, he's had more instances that terrified him compared to, like, it doesn't even compare to like anything else he's experienced before, and he's went to like some serious places. So he was completely terrified and completely shaken, and it was so weird too. The other thing is that when they were reviewing the bedroom footage, there's this weird shadow on the window because you could see like
Oh.
Jack's reflection when he
Mhm.
like goes out of the room, right? And I appreciate it because he's like, no, let's go back and look. And he's like, okay, that's me. We can clearly see that. And then when
Mhm.
he leaves, we're looking at this like window pane. It's so weird. There's like these two shadows. There's one like right at the sill, which to me kind of looked like a head peeking through. They don't say that, but that's kind of what it looked like to me. And then
Mhm.
I couldn't really, the other one just kind of looked like a blob. So it's kind of like whatever. And that's why they're kind of just like, whatever about it, but the lower one was just like really weird because it pops up after he's vacated the area. And because it's, not on the bottom floor, it's not like somebody could have been like popping up looking type of situation. So there's like, we don't know how to explain that. So they conclude their night, and this kind of concludes the episode, and very scary, very interesting. I am enjoying it. I like it. And I like that it's not super performative like other shows that exist. It kind of gives those vibes of like back to like Ghost Hunters and Amy Bruni and Adam Berry
Yes.
and all them, where they're very respectful, very mindful
Mhm.
and intentional with their investigations. So, big fan. Love this.
Mhm.
Can't wait to hear more stuff about Jack and his experiences back home about this. But that is going to go ahead and wrap us up for today. Hopefully, you're enjoying. And if you want to watch along, it is on HBO Max. It's a great series. I love it. So check it out. But with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Toodles.